Hey everyone, hope everyone's doing well. So we're just going to jump right in today's little blurb. We're going to talk about my theory and renditions of the Atlantis Empire. The Atlantis Empire is from antiquity. Some people believe it's a myth, just like the Greek gods, Zeus and Poseidon and all that. But we're going to get into some of the things that are still on the ground that are attributed to the Atlantis Empire. So right away we're going to go into the Atlantean Mountains, or the Atlantis mountain range of antiquity. This mountain range right here, in many of the ancient maps that I have, this is known as the Atlantis mountain range. This area here and this area here. Just imagine that you're wandering around and you see this from the air. I don't know how you would do that in antiquity, but this, I believe, would be the eastern port of the Atlantean Empire, or the Atlantis Empire. We believe that it was connected to the ocean. There are many, many ancient maps that say this area was connected all the way over to the Nile. So if that's true, then plausibly this would have been a really good logistical support for getting product from all over this side of the world to this side of the world without having to go around the Horn of Africa. Now you might think, well, why wouldn't you want to do that through the Mediterranean? Well, in antiquity, there would not have been an access point to the Mediterranean because right here would have been too shallow. There actually wouldn't have been water to pass through the Straits of Gibraltar here. And the reason why I say that is because I believe that when the Atlantean Empire was reigning, the oceans could have been 600 to 400 feet lower, which would have opened up the Azores, which is this area right here. This whole area right here would have been an island. There is your headquarters, the headquarters, the seaport of the headquarters. I don't even know if I'm saying that properly, but if you understand where I'm coming from, this would have been head office right here. From this area, you can pretty much run anything that happens across the Atlantic. Now, there would have been a chain of islands. Now, I don't know how extensive this chain would have been. I don't know if you would have been able to see island from island all the way down to this area in here. But there would have been some exposed. So that's a pretty good way of policing logistics back and forth between continents. If you're going to reign as an empire, you'll be able to check anything coming from this area. You'll be able to, people will have to come in and for a little bit of a stop, obviously, and then carry on. So this central port, that's what we'll call it. We'll call it a central port. This central port would have been head office. This would have been the eastern office. And I believe Edgar Casey was talking about the Bahamas, and that most likely would have been the eastern port, but I'm not going to rule out down here in South America because there's a lot of things going on down here that would have contributed to the Atlantean Empire. Also, some of the maps that I have that are not as old. They're not as old as the oldest pictures of maps that I have, but they are fairly old. They say that this is the continent of Atlantis. But I have to stress those maps are a little older than the originals, so it could have been distorted history. We just don't know. I have a friend in South Africa, around this area right here, And his name is Michael Tellinger. He has found not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of stone circles connected to energy grids. His research portrays those energy grids and stone circles as some type of excavating process to get all the minerals out of this area and up and levitated into the air to the to the people that organized the logistics to have those minerals brought to them. These stone structures are just saturated in silt. I mean, an amazingly long time has gone by. I would put it right up there with the Easter Island and the statues of the Easter Island heads that have bodies. Well, when they started digging down, they found out that, oh my goodness, well, these heads have bodies, and oh well, why would people bury them? I don't think people did bury them. I think that would be silt and dirt over the hundreds of thousands of years that eventually coalesce and settle down and create hills and earth around the heads over hundreds and thousands of years, compacted, and that's why you only have the heads left, because everything else has been covered up. The same thing happening down here in South Africa. A lot of these stone circles, a lot of these grid patterns, it's for hundreds, thousands of miles, are all. You can see them when they do radar imaging. But to walk into the fields, a lot of the stuff you have to dig up and brush off a lot of dirt. Some of the stone circles are still visible, and the patina on these stone circles is just astounding. I mean, just old, very, very old. But that's not really what I want to get into. I wanted to touch a little bit on Atlantis. I wanted to touch a little bit on the ports. I wanted to touch a little bit on Atlantis really wasn't a continent, it was an empire. And I wanted to touch a little bit on the stone circles and the extraction of the gold, because I do believe that they are all connected, and I do believe that it was most likely all the same people. But what I want to get into is my own research, and this is something that comes from me. I have seen people try to talk about it. It doesn't get a lot of play. And when I talk to my colleagues in the field about this specific topic, a lot of people shy away from, because it is a huge undertaking. It's going to be a huge project, and it's probably going to eat up 10s and 20s and 30s of years to get this, to get the information out there to the people. Basically, we have a huge empire, okay? So the Atlantean Empire. We know that it ruled all the coasts up here, all these coasts here. We know that all these people here are descendants of the people from Atland, and those people come from the east. We know that these people here in Egypt, in antiquity, were ingesting cocaine from here. So we know there is trade back and forth. Okay? You don't have mummies in Egypt that test positive for cocaine without those mummies getting the cocaine from this area here. It just doesn't happen. Cocaine only grows in one area of the planet, on the planet in antiquity. You're not going to find cocaine here. You're not going to find cocaine over here. You're only going to find the coca plant over here. So, when these people here are ingesting cocaine, most likely for pain or pleasure, it definitely has to come from this area here. which means that it has to get on a boat and go across, which means logistics are involved, trade routes are involved, and one other good point about this. Where are we here? This structure here is in my maps, my ancient maps. We have the Nile River going across the Sahara this way. It ties in. Whoops, wrong way. It ties in over here somewhere. So basically, we have an ancient river going all the way over here and tying into the Nile, which drains out here. I don't know how accurate that is. I do have 3 or 4 ancient maps with that route, with that river, with that water system, and I'm gonna have to go searching. But there are some historians that talk about that river system as well, going across Africa. But that's not the river and water system that I want to talk about. Down here in Botswana, this is why it's going to be so hard for me to actually put boots on the ground and do this. Over here in Botswana, there's this beautiful little delta. Everything in this area relies on this delta for annual rains and annual wetlands and annual growing seasons. So that has been a constant for hundreds of thousands of years, most likely since Earth was Earth and Africa was Africa. What I found when I was searching these big things like the Reichart structure and my friend Michael Tellinger's stone circles and many other the Nazca lines, all these giant all these giant petroglyphs that we see all over the place. All these big pictures, basically. When I was doing my research, I came across a couple people who were talking about these huge lines across Botswana. So I started looking into this, and I was trying to figure out, what are they talking about? What's so relevant about this, and why should I even care? This water system is so important, especially in antiquity, that these people dug canals hundreds and hundreds of thousands of feet. Now they're all messed up and scribbled, and there's been thousands of years of erosion, but you can still kind of see these lines coming through. They're very obscure, and I'm making a big point about how obscure they are up here, because we're going to get to an area where you're going to see them fairly good. But as you can see, like, these things go on for hundreds of if you were to walk end to end, all of them, you couldn't do it in a lifetime. All the way down here, these long lines. And basically, my assumption and my theory is, when the water would come annually in this area and fill up, the people, the ancient people, realized that they could dig these canals, and all these canals would fill up with water, which is something you're going to need if you're feeding an empire with hundreds of thousands of people. So we're going to go in. Hopefully I can find a nice area. Yeah, here's a nice area. So we're going to go in, and you can clearly see straight lines. So this would have been the low-lying area. This would have been the high-lying area. And we're going to go in a little bit more. All these black dots here, well, these would be trees. So just for size comparing, you can literally see these are kilometers wide. You know, this is probably about 1.5 kilometers. This is probably about 1 kilometer. This is probably about 1.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers. So they're massive, especially on this scale. Like, they just go forever and ever and ever. So when we're talking about this stuff here, we can fill this with water. We can plant whatever we want to plant up here and have all the water we need to water this. And at the same time, these trenches, these canals, can be used to grow fish. So we have fish farms and we have agriculture for growing a lot of fish farms and a lot of agriculture for growing and feeding huge populations. And what better place to do that right here if you need to feed a huge population, or another huge population, or another huge population, or all this population. Perfectly designed for mass production. And I mean mass production. Like, this is just huge. Hundreds of thousands of miles long. So old that you can barely see it anymore. Just like Michael Tellinger's work, just like the heads of Easter Island, just like the pyramids when they first found them, and just like the Reichardt structure. So much time in antiquity has passed that there's barely anything left, except small little footprints like this, painting a picture for a bigger picture. That's my Botswana Canals. Comment all you want on it. This is all I really have. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out, but most likely am. I'll put more comments in if I can think of anything that I'm leaving out. But yeah, I think that these right here, this would have fed the masses. If that's what these are. If these are actually canals, and these are actually agricultural plains, and these are actually fish farms, then there's the answer of how ancient cultures like Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, anything else that I'm missing, would have been able to feed hundreds of thousands of people. That's just my little blurb. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you can take the time out to watch this and maybe share it with people and get the information out there. Maybe other people have some more insight on what this is. Maybe I've got it all wrong. We never know. Anyways, I'll leave this in your hands and enjoy. Take care.